Sword Art Online is bad, and in other breaking news, a fish found in water. I have a couple reasons for wanting to make this video. I've used Sword Art Online as a bad example a lot, but just like with 7 Deadly Sins, I haven't actually watched it since middle school. There is some part of me that's legitimately certain I didn't even need to rewatch the show to make this video, but the problem is that I like being thorough. I've also gotten a bunch of requests to talk about it, and I like views, so why not? I mean, you care a little bit, you clicked to the video. In this video, I'm going to be covering Season 1 and the 2 Progressive movies. I am planning on covering all of it, but that's really only if you guys are interested. And I figured that making it a series like this would be a little more fun. Before we get started, I do want to give a genuine content warning. If you feel that engaging with these topics puts you at risk of harm, I cannot recommend you continue watching this video or Sword Art Online. As far as Sword Art Online goes, I promise you really aren't missing out on much. For those of you who had better things to do in middle school, Sword Art Online is about Kazuto Kirigaya, or as he's known in the game, Kirito. One day, a video game called Sword Art Online is released to the public. It's a VR game so advanced that you're essentially in another world. Yes, Sword Art Online is an isekai. I'd say it's technically the first modern one, and that really is a shame. In the same way that adult animation is stuck in a loop of copying Family Guy and like Rick and Morty, most modern isekai are incredibly derivative of Sword Art. Of course you have your exceptions. ReZero can't be that bad if everyone's recommending it to me, but if it's slop, it's almost certainly based on Sword Art Online. The first bit of the episode is us hanging out with Kirito and another guy named Klein, while Kirito shows him the ropes. Klein is alright. He doesn't really do anything interesting. His main function is just to pop up as a friendly face every now and again, but he could be worse. Something interesting needs to happen though, so out of nowhere, everyone in the game is teleported back to the starting town. While everyone is asking around, something appears in the sky. This is Akihiko Kaiba, the developer of Sword Art Online and the Nerve Gear. Kaiba has descended upon them to deliver the great news. All 10,000 players of Sword Art Online are trapped inside the game, and any attempt to leave will result in their brains being fried by the console. The only way that they'll make it back to the real world is to beat the game by clearing all 100 floors of Castle Aincrad. Now I want you to keep in mind, everyone in Sword Art Online is hearing this. This is now a death game, where if you die, you die. And you're gonna be hearing me say that phrase a lot during this arc. While everyone is freaking out, Kirito tries to convince Klein to head out of town with them, so they can have better access to resources, but he gets turned down. Klein has some friends who don't know how to play the game, and he's gonna make sure that they don't die immediately. And with the promise to meet again, Kirito starts to make his way out of the fields to start leveling. This is a pretty good concept and hook. As far as episode 1 goes, they don't do anything egregious, and a couple of the things they set up are actually kind of interesting. Kirito could be a little more interesting, but it's episode 1, so I'll give him a pass for now. I wish Klein was staying with us, but his reason for leaving is fine enough. And maybe his friends will be fun later, who knows? It was around here where I began to doubt my contempt for the show, even if just a little bit. This wasn't a terrible episode. Surely something interesting will happen in season 1. Surely it can't be that bad. Have you seen the show? We immediately time skipped through the first month of the Sword Art Online incident. At this point, there have been about 2,000 deaths in Sword Art Online, and they have just now found the boss room for the first floor. I don't believe you. At the beginning of the game, there were 10,000 players, most of which were presumably fans of either VR games, video games in general, or MMORPGs. Let's say that only half of them are out there really fighting and trying to level up and stuff. It took them a month to find this? The boss room is in a tower that reaches up to the next floor. You can see it from across the horizon. 10,000 players ignored the most obvious landmark on the map? Spoilers, I guess. But the progression in Sword Art Online is kind of wonky. It takes a month to find the first boss, but after that it only takes 703 days to clear the game. And I won't explain how, but they managed to do it on floor 75. There are sometimes lulls in progression that last for weeks or months, but with those dates they'd have to beat a boss once every 10-ish days. I think, call me crazy, the author of this series might have just picked these dates out arbitrarily and didn't think about how they stacked up over long term. It doesn't really matter. Over the course of the series, we only see 3 of the 75 floor bosses. Segue, episode 2 is about the first raid on a boss. Because they haven't made any real progress, the top players are gonna band together for a raid on the boss. They make a couple smaller groups for the raid, and Kirito's left all alone. Luckily though, a mysterious figure was left alone too, and they end up partying together. There's this guy there complaining about beta testers since they had better information to start with, but they literally publish the information they have in a book, so it's kind of a dumb argument. The money is split in the items for finders keepers. Oh, and whoever gets the last hit gets like a special item drop, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, no one found this biblically large tower in a month. Fuck you. During the boss fight, things are going fairly decently. The boss is at critical health, like a tiddlywink, a gumdrop of health. The guy who organizes the raid is named Diablo for the record, and he yells to everyone to get back because he's got it. The boss pulls out a different weapon than he did in the beta and uses Diablo as an example of what not to do. He wanted the final attack bonus, right? Like he wanted the item, that's why he did that. Can we agree on that? Diablo is on death's door when Kirito tries to hand him a potion, which he refuses, leading to his actual for real death. I cannot possibly imagine why he turned this potion down, considering this is a death game where if you die, you die. Did you forget? They try to give Kirito a sort of call to action where Diablo says he has to lead the charge, but it rings hollow because Diablo could have just taken the potion he was being handed and lived. You can buy these in mass. There's no reason for him to refuse. Kirito and the mysterious figure start fighting the boss, and it turns out they're actually a gamer girl, and Kirito snags the last hit. The guy from earlier calls him out as a beta tester and says that Diablo's death was his fault. If Kirito had told them the moveset of the boss before they got there, he wouldn't have died. Excuse me? Diablo died because he was a fucking idiot. They start calling Kirito a beater, which is like a slur for beta tester and cheater. It's like a, they call him slurs.
Blackie, what'd you do with that boss drop, huh?
You know it dropped the guild flag, so don't lie.
Because this episode just can't stop being stupid, they managed to sneak a buzzer beater in. At some point, Kirito called this mysterious figure Asuna, and she asked him how he knew her name. And he points out that when you're partied with another player, their name and health appears under yours in the user interface. You're telling me that Asuna, who has been fighting in this death game where if you die for a month, wasn't looking at her health bar during the boss fight? She's supposed to be one of the smarter characters in the show, by the way. I'm pretty sure this author has never played a video game before. There are things that just don't feel logical for a story set in an MMORPG. Some things are stupid and weird in order to facilitate the plot, and some things are stupid and weird for the sake of being stupid and weird. Do the health bars have numbers or not? Because it varies literally from shot to shot. Here's 2 shots from the same episode. Chests and quests might reset. There are a couple times that people reference redoing a mission for rewards, but other times they treat quests like a one-time event. This is weird because in basically any MMORPG, any player can complete an NPC's quest. Since you pay for the game, this feels like something they should probably figure out, but it's subject to change on a line-by-line basis. I have more of these, but I can't explain them without spoiling something I want to talk about. But just remember that these are issues with basically every episode in the show. This is the foundation of the very world these characters exist in, and anyone who's played a video game is going to wonder if you have the faintest idea of what you're writing about. Earlier I said some of these issues facilitate the plots of certain episodes, and unfortunately I have a stellar example for you. The Moonlit Black Cat situation is a genuine hot mess. The hook for the episode is that Kirito joined a guild called the Moonlit Black Cats, but what they don't know is that he's twice their level. What online multiplayer game have you ever played where you can't see a party member's level? That is one of the most basic pieces of information a game will give you about one of the people you're partied with. He is double their level and they never figure it out. He's hanging out with them for months. This seems kind of inconsequential, but because Sword Art Online will scale relative to player level, this will inadvertently lead to the death of everyone in the party except for Kirito. One of the members of the Moonlit Black Cats is named Sachi, and she is scared to die. And that is the only trait anyone in this group has aside from being an idiot. Sachi isn't a character so much as she's a tool for the author to hurt Kirito, but it doesn't even really work that well because she isn't interesting. As a point of comparison, let's talk about the Hunger Games. Rue's character doesn't work very effectively because she exists to play the cute kid card. These characters are ultra death coded because their sole function is to make the main character reflect on the cruelty of their circumstance. Rue and Sachi are bland because the primary point of their character is the baseline for everyone else in the series. Everyone in Sword Art Online is scared of dying in the game, so when a character shows up and her only lines are "I don't want to die," it's pretty obvious what's gonna happen. Eventually they get enough money to buy a house. While the guild leader is out, the group decides to go grinding for money to buy new furniture for their house. At this point, the players have access to 28 levels of Aincrad, so instead of grinding on the top level, they go to level 27. They are going to the second highest floor available to them, in the death game, where if you die, you die, to grind out money for furniture. I don't understand how they made it this far. While they're in the dungeon, they stumble upon a room with one entrance and nothing inside it but a chest in the middle.
Oh shit! They jumping me! They jumping me!
The only one who doesn't die, like, immediately is Sachi, who has to traumatize Kirito a little extra. If there are any Sword Art Online fans who actually cared about this, can I interview you? Kirito's torn up about this all the way till Christmas, and he hears a rumor about a seasonal boss that drops a unique item. I'll cut to the chase. Kirito fights the Santa boss off screen, and it turns out the revival item only works if you get to the person within 10 seconds of their death. It isn't worth anything to him now, so he ends up giving it to Klein, and that's how the episode ends off. Even crazier, this item never comes up again. And I know that not every Chekhov's gun is meant to be fired. Sometimes it is just a gun on the wall, but this is very clearly supposed to be implemented again. I think if you want to make this episode work, they actually need to know about Kirito being over-leveled. It gives them a good reason to keep him in the party despite the fact that he doesn't really know them very well. If he isn't hiding his level, it can work as a pretty good way to introduce new issues. When you're with someone strong, you're much more likely to bite off more than you can chew, so that could be why they want to hit the higher levels of the dungeon. We'll be fine as long as Kirito's here, or something like that. It literally writes itself. It even gives a reason for Sachi to be extra close to him. She's scared to die, so she wants to stick with the strongest person they know. And then when Kirito promises she won't die, it means something instead of it being the most obvious result of the situation. I don't want to talk about Silica. I don't want to talk about Silica. This episode is so much worse in hindsight. Episode 4 has a bunch of issues, but hopefully it shouldn't take nearly as long to cover. We meet a girl named Silica whose pet dragon Pina gets killed by a bunch of gorillas. Kirito saves her and offers to help take her to floor 47 to find a specific item to revive it. When they make it back to town, Silica's confronted by a girl that used to be partied with her, but she's vaguely menacing, so it's probably a good thing they don't hang out anymore. Since he saved her, Silica's been developing feelings for Kirito. Nothing more than a crush though. That would be ridiculous. They grab the item and the mission is basically over like that. As they're heading back though, the girl from earlier pops up with some players with orange icons. See, earlier Kirito explained what the weird like Sims icon is. Essentially, it's an evil meter. Or I guess murder meter makes more sense? Green crystals are fine. Once you commit a crime against another player, it turns orange, and for some reason you're called a red player. The red-headed girl is here with a whole gang of violent players, but when they start to attack Kirito, his health regenerates faster than they can deal the damage. This is played off like it's supposed to be some cool badass moment for him, but it's genuinely just uninteresting. Of course he's stronger. The plot of the last episode is that he was over-leveled. What's important to note is that this moment shows that he's strong enough to tank several people attacking him at once. Just something to consider going forward. He kinda just wins. Once they get back, Silica says she's excited to tell Pina all about the day where she had her own big brother. The whole episode was framed like a date. This dichotomy is consistent throughout the entire episode. Earlier, Kirito says that he's helping because Silica reminds him of his little sister, and they then proceed to do the weird date stuff. Man, I hope this doesn't end up being a bad omen of how Reki Kawahara writes sibling relationships. That sure would be repulsive. This episode is actually really confusing when I sit down and think about it. What's the goal here? Like, what's the point in telling us this story? Kirito's already moved on past his trauma enough to bring an underleveled player on a mission where he knew her life would be in danger. So clearly it isn't about continuing his arc after the last episode. He developed off screen. By this point, he's stated to be a part of the team that's taking on the bosses too. So clearly he isn't afraid of playing nice with others either. So what's the point of reinforcing his solo playstyle through the Moonlit Black Cat incident? It's like Kawahara is actively trying not to write him. That's why we skipped over 20 floors between episode 3 and 4! The murder mystery episodes are fine. These episodes are the first two in which we see Asuna and Kirito really interact with one another. At this point, Asuna is the second in command for the Knights of the Blood Oath, which is the strongest guild in the game. This is cool and all until they put her in a scene with Kirito, and then she's forcefully shoved into the damsel in distress role. Kawahara can't help but make her useless, either by not letting her do anything meaningful unless it's to show that she's just as cool as Kirito, or by literally removing all of her agency in a given situation. It's actually really fun to bet on which it's going to be in any given scene. In this specific episode, Asuna is just so bland. She's important because she's Kirito's love interest, but you can slot her out for any other character in the series, and the only thing that changes is what Kirito has for lunch and dinner. Fuck it, man. Let Kirito and Klein solve a murder mystery together. I bet that'd be awesome. Kirito isn't interesting either, but that's more fish found in water shit. Kirito and Asuna are hanging out when someone's murdered in one of the safe zones of the game, which is usually impossible. They start investigating, and eventually another player's killed right in front of them. I'll walk you through the mystery, why not? There is this guild called the Golden Apple. A rare item dropped and they voted 5-3 to sell it. Their guild leader, Griselda, died while trying to sell it, and there are a couple of suspects. Griselda's husband, Grimlock, another party member named Schmidt, and they're basically the only two that matter. Schmidt is certain that Griselda's ghost is the one committing the murders, and when he goes to her grave to apologize, he's confronted by the two people who died in the episode. They faked their deaths to trick him into confessing, but he didn't do anything other than provide information to the killers. As it turns out, Grimlock is the one who had Griselda killed, and it's so fire for like 30 seconds. He wanted to keep the item, and since they were married, they shared inventory space. While Griselda was out trying to sell it, he had her killed so the item transferred into his inventory. This is set up fine enough. Asuna talks once about how marriage in the game is sweet since you share inventory space and crap, and then Kirito rushes out to catch the guy after figuring it out. This works fine enough, and I was gonna say that the series did one whole thing correctly, but unfortunately, this is just Kirito's theory. Grimlock goes on to explain why he actually killed Griselda. Grimlock and Griselda were married in real life too. She was a little too happy in the game, so he had her killed because he'd rather his wife be miserable, I guess. You know, you can just break up with your partner, like for any reason, really. As long as you think it's valid, that's all that matters. Because to be in a relationship, both people have to want to be in the relationship, right? You don't have to murder her, man. I hope that isn't news for anyone watching this. I cut out a lot of the filler here, but I promise it isn't very interesting. I'm really doing you a favor here. Imagine the same amount of plot stretched over 40 minutes with no meaningful additions. It's so bland. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, they see Griselda's ghost. This isn't explained, this isn't elaborated on, it's hardly even commented on.
Hey, Kirito? Do you want to friend me? It's kind of silly not to.
It's not that I don't want. Hey!
By the way, did you just see that ghost? The Liz episode is a little extra frustrating because it's a really great example of how Kawahara tends to write women. If they aren't in love with Kirito, they aren't worth keeping in the story. Period. This episode is about a blacksmith named Liz. This is the first time we see a player that doesn't go out into the field unless it's necessary. Liz is a business owner in the game, and she has a ton of personality. For all of 7 minutes, Kirito comes into his shop looking for a weapon that's as good or better than what he's currently using. He breaks from Magnum Opus and they decide to go together to get materials for the best sword ever. Out near the Fortress of Solitude, Kirito fights a dragon for the materials they need. And this might be a little nitpicky, but I think this is my least favorite design in the entire series. It may very well be a side effect of early CGI, but I still have to look at it while I edit the video. While Kirito's fighting the dragon, Liz steps out of cover and they're both blown into a big pit. Kirito has to use a potion to heal, even though he has regeneration skills. Let's pretend you can only have a couple skills on at a time. Why wouldn't you turn that on when you know you have to fight a dragon? Or like when you're at the bottom of a pit at half health and you can just regenerate the health instead of drinking a potion. He's an ultra gamer. That is the only unique thing about him. Why is he acting stupid? Is it because Kawahara wanted to write a cool scene without thinking about the long-term implications? Because I think Kawahara wanted to write a cool scene without thinking about the long-term implications. And oh my god, are the implications frustrating. It turns out the metal they were looking for is dragon crap, and they found it in the pit that they're hiding in. The dragon comes back and Kirito gets them out of the pit by hitching a ride, but as they're in the air, Liz yells something over to Kirito.
Don't freak out! But I'm falling in love with you!
Girl, you have known him for a day. Do better. Later they make it back and Liz makes a sword. Asuna walks in and Liz sees that she's also into him, so she runs out crying. Kirito later tracks her down and just tells her how all the events of the episode impacted him, instead of us seeing that in the episode as it was happening. The show is basing all of Kirito's emotional growth on characters that are far too shallow to do the heavy lifting. If the show followed Kirito as he went on his journey and we saw how all these stories really impacted him, I'm sure the show would be passable, at least functional. However, the show has elected to make everyone obsessed with Kirito with mildly changing flavors of dependency, and gives none of them a personality, which leaves the viewer with a really subpar experience. Is Sword Art Online your favorite anime? How? Hey, so I looked at the episode list. We're done with SAO proper in 6 episodes. It's actually 7. I'm just not gonna talk about one of them because it's really boring. Like even more boring than the rest of these somehow. Asuna cooks them food, and then Kirito fights her stalker. She's the second in command of her guild. I don't get how this is really an issue for her. We've also jumped ahead by a good amount of time again. We're on floor 74 now. They've been in Sword Art Online for 2 years. Man, wouldn't it be cool if we could see the death game they're playing? I think that could be fire. The boss fight on the 74th floor is the Gleam Eyes, and this is one of the most iconic moments in the series. which is baffling because it's just not interesting. This is the moment when Kirito uses dual wielding for the first time, and it's framed as his biggest moment so far. I mean, come on, he's using 2 swords, guys, and it looks pretty, but the scene itself doesn't have any actual weight. I guess I should probably explain how we got here. Just remember, we're building up to the most hype moment of the season. Asuna and Kirito are working their way through the dungeon when they stumble upon the boss room. They take a peek inside, and when they see the boss, they get freaked out and hightail it out of there. Thankfully, the door was just wide open, unlike every other boss room we see in the series. Once they're safely away, they talk about how they'd need an entire team to take it down. I'll even play you the clip. It is going to be the clip from the dub though, because I want you to suffer.
You're gonna have to put tanks in the front row and keep switching out just to wear it down.
Yeah, and it wouldn't hurt to have about 10 shield users.
Klein and his guys are here too, and right after they finish catching up, a group of red shirts from a player guild show up. They immediately demand to know where the boss room is, and they're intent on going. Despite knowing that their guild is lower level, and despite the fact that half of their group is about to puke from exhaustion, Kirito willingly gives them this information. They then walk off screen. No, they went to fight the boss! So now that the red shirts are in the boss room, they can't use their teleportation crystals. So it's a good thing the door is literally wide open. They're gonna get killed if our heroes don't step in to do something. Now that we're back, Asuna gets her 2 seconds of shine before she gets punched in the face by the boss. And Kirito busts out the dual wielding skill for the first time in Sword Art Online history. It's almost kind of impressive how poorly this scene functions. He essentially solos the boss. If he's this strong and there are a handful of players that are relative to him, how are they still on level 74 of the game? Are you having trouble finding the boss rooms again? When Kirito and Asuna first run into the Gleam Eyes, their immediate reaction is, let's come back with lots of other people because we can't handle it ourselves. And I mean, apparently not. Kirito could handle it by himself, given the 10 seconds to equip the skill. Also, how is this not a normally available skill in the game? I watched a dude dual wield axes earlier, and since it's basically real life, couldn't you just do this? Surely someone unlocked it by now. This moment has a lot of fanfare, and I think if you aren't paying attention, it'll do enough to trick you into thinking it's some cool, badass scene. But there's nothing here. This is a nothing burger. It also doesn't help that this leads into the stupid fucking fight with Heathcliff. Kirito almost died in the... My body's refusing to let me say the fucking... My body's refusing to let me say the line. Kirito almost died in the Gleam Eyes fight. Let's ignore that Klein has the thing, by the way. Asuna decides that she wants to take a leave of absence from her guild. Now, her wanting to take a leave of absence is fine, but why is it solely motivated by Kirito nearly dying? She's the second in command of the best guild in the game. Surely she has a second reason for wanting to take a vacation. Surely she has one thought. When she started spending time with him, she started being written like every other woman in the series. Whatever tiddlywink of personality she had earlier has evaporated completely. Asuna tells her boss Heathcliff that she wants to take a break from being on the front lines. Not even that she wants to quit, just that she wants a break, and he says he'll let her go on one condition. Kirito has to fight him in a duel in front of everybody using dual wielding. If Kirito wins, Asuna gets her vacation, and if he loses, Kirito has to join the Knights of the Blood Oath. I'm sorry, heaven fucking forbid we let a girl decide what she wants to do in a death game where if you die, you die. At this point, why don't you quit? You don't need to be in the guild to participate in the raids. Kirito's whole thing is that he's a solo player that's still on the assault squad. It's not like they can stop you anyway. You're the 3rd strongest player in the game. You can literally just leave. And this is how Reiki Kawahara chooses to portray women in this series. Not as characters, or as people who can think, but as objects to be won. That's why all the women have been swooning for Kirito. What's the point in a woman in the story if they aren't there to fall in love with the main character? Asuna doesn't even have a unique perspective on the situation. She just doesn't want Kirito to fight because he might lose. They fight and it's animated well, but I don't care. And I hate saying that. I feel like it's such a weak criticism. I feel like I'm disengaging with the work itself, but I can't bring myself to be interested about this. I'm already having to fight the show just to make sure shit makes sense. I can't also fight the show to make sure I'm interested. Now that I'm thinking about it, this is even dumber than I thought. The next episode starts with them asking to go on vacation, and then Heathcliff says, yeah, go for it. So clearly you didn't give a shit. You just did this. You could have just asked him to duel you privately. Him tricking Kirito into joining the guild is stupid too. He's actively helping them and has been since the beginning of the game. Before we tiptoe towards the finale, I'll cover like a stupid little mini arc because I think it's silly. Before Kirito joined the guild, Asuna had the most obviously evil and creepy bodyguard you can imagine, and Kirito beats him up and makes him leave. Once he joins the guild, he has to go on a team bonding trip with him and another dude, and the evil guy ends up being evil. He stabs Kirito really slowly, and this nearly kills him. Remember literally any time Kirito's been in a fight and taken worse damage than this? Like basically any fight we see him in? What is happening? The damage in this game is really inconsistent, and that's because the story is written like something you'd find on Wattpad. It'll focus on the story being progressed so it can fit in these big moments at the cost of every scene before and after it. It only needs to make sense right now. Practically every moment in the season can be explained like this, except for Dialbell dying. That shit still doesn't make any sense! Oh my goodness. Do you want to watch 2 cardboard cutouts raise a stock cute child? I have fantastic news for you. Kirito and Asuna get married off screen. At some point they affirm their feelings for each other are real. I can't tell you what those feelings are, but sure. Kirito and Asuna aren't written like 2 teenagers fighting for their life. They're written like blank character sheets, and that always stayed the most practical thing in every situation. I feel like I haven't even been skipping too much in my coverage here. Asuna saved his life during the field trip incident, and other than that, she assumed he wanted to have sex with her one time. Their relationship is seriously underdeveloped. I mean, they get married off screen. Are you serious? I guess I can't say they might not be at this point in their relationship, but I haven't witnessed anything. It doesn't even seem like Kirito enjoys hanging out with her. While they're on a date, Kirito seems to be legitimately annoyed at her trying to engage in conversation with them. It gets to the point that Kirito brings her to an area on the map that's rumored to be haunted for seemingly no reason other than to scare her. I literally don't understand why he did this other than to advance the plot. What in-character reason does Kirito have for scaring the shit out of his wife? I also don't even understand why she's scared. She's one of the most powerful people in the game, and it's not even her first time seeing a ghost in-game somewhere. The ghost turns out to be a little girl who's got amnesia, so they take her in for a couple of days. Her name is Yui, and unfortunately, her episodes have a whole lot of stupid in them. It really is a shame. They basically just have a kid now, and Yui's probably the character I'm the most neutral on. She's okay, and if you think she's cute, that's fine, but otherwise there just isn't much to latch on to. Kirito and Asuna take Yui back to the starting town to see if anyone knows who this kid is. While they're there, they hear a couple of kids getting hustled by the Red Shirt Guild from earlier. Asuna and Kirito leap over them to protect the kids, and Asuna takes charge of the situation. Single-handedly, she scares off the military men by beating down on the biggest, baddest one of them all. And then, once they turned tail and started crying for their mommy, she said, "If I ever see your ugly mug again, you'll regret it." And then, everyone clapped. While they're looking for Yu's family, they get dragged into going on a sort of side quest. This girl named Yulier has been looking for Kirito and Asuna because her boyfriend Thinker got lured into a trap. They're the only people strong enough to save him basically, and after some convincing they decide to help her out. And I want you to remember, Yui is a child with no memories, no equipment, and no combat experience. Kirito's greatest trauma in this show, something that they've referenced in basically every big moment since, is that he was with someone who was underleveled and couldn't stop them from dying.
Hey, this is serious. It's too dangerous for you to come along with us this time. I'm going too!
You're telling me with a straight face that Kirito would be cool with this? Are you fucking serious? Clearly you didn't give a shit about writing the character. How did this become genre defining? I don't understand it anymore. Oh no, a monster much stronger than expected shows up. I wonder if anyone could have predicted this. So Yui jumps in to fight the boss, and when it attacks her, a prompt appears calling her an immortal object, which means that Yui is a part of the game itself, so she can't take damage, like the floors and the walls. Yui spawns in a sword and one-taps the boss. You know how easy it is to make a little kid with a big weapon awesome? I think as long as you don't write Yui, you'll be fine. So what is Yui for real? SAO has 2 AI built into it. The Cardinal system is responsible for maintaining game balance, so you can probably just throw that shit away. Yui is responsible for monitoring the mental health of the players and helping them where she can. For some reason, once Sword Art went online, it sealed Yui away so she couldn't do anything but watch the events of the game. But I don't understand. What's the point of Kaiba even developing an AI this powerful if the Cardinal system can just seal it away? Is it because the author thought of an AI girl and didn't want to let the idea go? I think it might be because the author thought of an AI girl and didn't want to let the idea go. Also, isn't it crazy that the author wanted to make a traumatized little girl for the audience to latch onto? And he couldn't even make that interesting? Kirito and Asuna were apparently the only 2 people in Sword Art Online who have been happy or fallen in love with one another in the 2 years they've been whole lot to put on Asuna and Kirito's relationship. They are not interesting or dynamic enough to be the only people in SAO who are in love. Yui wants to stay with them, but because she spawned in the sword, the cardinal system is going to seal her away again. And very quickly, Kirito uses a master console that they're at, by the way, and downloads Yui to the local storage of his nerve gear, with the hope of bringing her back someday. By this point, I was genuinely fighting against this show to keep myself interested. It is aggressively boring, and that's unfortunate. On the bright side, we've only got 2 more episodes to watch before we make it through SAO proper. God help us all.
Oh god, the end of Sword Art Online is so bad.
Ah, fuck. Episode 13 is called The Edge of Hell's Abyss. That sounds about right. We watched Kirito fish for a bit, and I'm bringing this up because once Duke Fishron spawns in, Asuna's the one who kills him. Of course we let her be badass against the fish mini-boss, but watch, as soon as it's gonna matter, she won't be able to do anything. I'm gonna fucking snap. Please, at least half-ass your female characters. I'm getting too hot in this cardigan. I'm gonna go change shirts. Okay. They also take a moment to let Asuna explain her feelings towards Kirito for the audience, since they forgot to write that into the story, but better late than never, I guess. Heathcliff calls him off the bench for the boss raid on the 75th floor. But before they go in, Kirito asks Asuna not to participate so she can stay safe.
You know what would happen if you didn't come back? Huh? I'd kill myself. I'd never forgive myself for staying behind, so what would be the point in living?
The Gleam Eyes fight happens on October 18th, and they cleared the game on November 7th of the same year. It's been a couple of weeks at best. Girl, please do better. They go into the boss fight and kill it without anything interesting happening. After they beat it, everyone's complaining about how they still have 25 floors to go before they clear the game. And I mean, yeah, but this fight doesn't take very long. Kirito soloed the 74th, and he's still relative to Asuna and Heathcliff, depending on the scene. I feel like if you guys really made a push for it, you'd probably finish it by February. While everyone is complaining, Kirito notices that Heathcliff is minding his own business, and proceeds to try to stab him in front of several eyewitnesses. Before he has time to react, an immortal object pop-up blocks the attack. Kirito then outs Heathcliff to everyone as Akihiko Kaiba. You see, since day 1, something has been bugging him. How would Kaiba know what's going on in the game? He could be watching the entire thing, but that would be too boring. And I don't mean like that'd be a boring answer for the story. I mean Kirito says that would be too boring.
It's basic psychology. In fact, it's so simple every kid knows it. There's nothing more boring than watching someone else play an RPG. Is there, Akihiko Kaiba?
And then he just fesses up to it. You're telling me the only reason they catch this fucking guy is because Kirito is such a man baby that he can't admit he maybe lost a fight? Imagine working your way to this conclusion from Kirito's perspective. See, I'm simply the best player in the game, so if he can beat me, he must be cheating, therefore he's a cheater, therefore he's Akihiko Kaiba in disguise. Sword Art Online is a game with infinite skills, and he's the strongest player in the best guild. Even if he isn't Akihiko Kaiba, you have no idea what he's capable of. Kirito gets into the Colosseum fight because he was hiding an overpowered skill that no one had ever seen before. A skill he was hiding for 6 months. Surely in a game with infinite skills, one of them would help you block an attack you wouldn't normally be able to. It also doesn't help that they're only in the situation because Kaiba forces Kirito to fight for Asuna's right to a vacation. A fight that was ultimately pointless if you're gonna let them go on vacation in the next episode anyway! Because he can't accept the fact that maybe he lost to one of the best players in the game, he genuinely attempts to kill him in front of several people. With how inconsistent Sword Art Online's damage is, Kirito very well could have killed him. If he did, he would have destroyed their chances of getting out of Sword Art Online. But for some reason, the series rewards this train of thought. Kirito is the best player, so Heathcliff must have cheated, therefore he must be Akihiko Kaiba. I understand it isn't implausible that Kirito figures it out this way, but you must see how it's a little frustrating to watch. I guess I'm glad it worked out in Kirito's favor if it'll spare us from watching another 25 floors of this. But you know what you could do? Maybe skip them and put this incident on floor 99. You already skipped numbers 2 through 73! This episode is literally only going to get worse from here. Kaiba and Kirito are gonna fight again, but without Kaiba cheating. And to make sure there aren't any interruptions, Kaiba paralyzes everyone. Like console command paralyzes everyone. If Kirito wins, he'll let everyone out of the game right now. But of course, if he loses, everyone else has to keep going. And Kirito dies. I don't even understand why he's offering this. You wanted them to play your game so bad, you held them hostage. Before they start, Kirito asks Kaiba to fix it so that Asuna can't off herself if he loses. And they say chivalry is dead. I mean, at this point, why not just brainwash Asuna? She doesn't get to make any decisions anyway. Surely it can't get any worse than this. They start the fight. Kirito's gonna try to beat him without using any sword skills since Kaiba programmed all infinity of them. While they're fighting, Liz's sword breaks, and I really think it should have been the other one. I know it's like a monster drop, so it's probably stronger, but wouldn't it be so much more meaningful if the sword she'd put all that poorly written emotion into didn't break? Like, come on, we don't even get to see where he got that weapon. This feels like it would very clearly be the better option to break. Kirito's about to get nailed when Asuna somehow fights through her paralyzed condition and blocks the shot. And this one attack kills her.
I want your word that you'll fix it so Asuna doesn't kill herself.
Unless it's to save me. She seriously, for real, dies right here. So she's dead, right? Because in Sword Art Online, when you die, you die? Like, that's the whole point? Wait, shit, maybe, hang on, let me see if Klein can get to her with the item in 10 seconds, she'll live. So hang on, let's count it out, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9.5, 10. Okay, yeah, she's totally dead. Gotcha, just wanna make sure. Kirito gives up basically and ends up getting stabbed in the chest. And this one attack kills him. Somehow though, he reverse rage quits, picks up the sword, and stabs Kaiba, winning the fight. What the fuck are you talking about? If you die, you die. That is the whole idea of the show. What are you talking about? Oh look, Kirito's alive. Oh, and Asuna too. Literally how? I don't know, Kaiba's here for some reason. 6,147 players have survived the Sword Art Online incident and are currently being logged out of the game. You know how I know this show is trying to piss me off? Listen to this quote from Kaiba.
In any world, real or virtual, once you're dead, you're gone.
All 3 of you died. They don't address this. And I bet you're wondering, why? Why did Kaiba do this? What could have possibly possessed him to trap 10,000 victims in Sword Art Online? What drove him to kill 3,853 innocent people?
That's a good question. It's been so long, I've forgotten the reason.
What do you mean you forgot? You killed nearly 4,000 people, you dunce! Breaking news. Solo developer and actual genius Akihiko Kaiba kills nearly 4,000 because he felt like it, I guess. I hate it here. Anywho, Kirito wakes up in the hospital, and the first chapter of Sword Art Online has officially come to a close. You know, it takes a lot for something to really get on my nerves like this. Generally, both. Genuinely, I like to think of myself as someone who tries to give things the benefit of the doubt. I like to try to be someone who can see the good in a project, even if it's buried under mounds and mounds of shit. I'm not sure there's much good buried under Aincrad. I don't think there's a single character that I genuinely like, or can really even appreciate. Klein and Aegil, I think that's my first time mentioning him, that's how little he matters. Klein and Aegil are the closest things to a bright spot I can imagine in the series, but they certainly aren't good. They're passable. They are just hardly passable. Kirito isn't a character. SAO is the first modern isekai, and unfortunately he's since become the mold for every black-haired loser that's followed. It seems like Reki Kawahara is trying as hard as possible to avoid writing him with character. Nothing we've seen him go through informs his actions. Like, Sachi, they try to milk the Sachi death for all it's worth in a scene where death is like a possibility. But you know where they don't use it? When he brings a small child into a dangerous area where there may be high-level monsters. I can only assume that Kawahara is writing him to be bland intentionally, which would make this an active choice that makes this incredibly weak series even weaker. The alternative is that he's just a big idiot and forgot to give his main character any actual character. He forgot to write him. Which would you prefer? The female characters are written with even less effort somehow. Early Asuna is just a girl in a video game. That's all she has to her character. That's why she's wearing a cloak. It's to hide that she's a girl for a second. Sachi does nothing but rely on Kirito and ends up dead. Silica develops feelings for him, calls him her big brother, and then isn't seen again until they've escaped. Liz goes on a quest with him, falls in love immediately, and then isn't seen again until they've escaped. Late Asuna starts to fall for him, is routinely stripped of her agency at every opportunity, declares her life forfeit if he isn't in it, and then dies to save this idiot. Until she comes back from the dead somehow. That is every important woman in the show. None of them are real people so much as objects for Kirito to interact with for an episode while they awkwardly try to flirt with him. Fuck me, man. We're only halfway through season 1. There really isn't a reason the show should have become the cultural cornerstone it is. There isn't an engaging plot, episode, character, setting, or scene. The concept is its only strength, and it's so apparent that that's the case because it falls apart under any scrutiny. I'm sorry. There is one good thing in the show. The intro absolutely bangs. Crossing Field has been on my playlist since I first heard it, and I suspect it will be there until I'm dust in the wind. Do you, yes, you, think the only issue with Sword Art Online is that we skipped 72 bosses and also like all the stuff that had to do with the actual game? Well, great news! Reki Kawahara heard you and is currently resubmitting his work for a better grade. Yeah, the monkey's paw curled in on itself really hard here. The Sword Art Online Progressive series is Kawahara's attempt to go back and explain some of the gaps in the story of Sword Art Online in greater detail. This includes making up new characters, new bosses, and floors, and of course, comes with a whole host of issues. I would normally cover these later in the video, but if I had to come back to Sword Art Online after Alfheim Online, I think I might have turned to petty arson. So we're going to talk about it now so I don't have to think about it anymore. There's a train coming. There's a train coming. Hang on. I know you don't believe me, it's coming. Aria of the Starless Night is the first of the 2 progressive movies, at least so far, and it goes through Asuna's first month on floor 1. It's essentially a retelling of episode 1 and 2 with some extra stuff in between. It's really boring, guys. We see a little bit of Asuna's life before she ends up in the game, and if nothing else, I can definitely say that Kawahara's consistent. She's the most boring person in the room in real life, too. They walk us through a day at her school, and we don't learn anything we don't already know. She's athletic, popular, and while she's always been smart, they're making a point of her being studious. Just like Kirito, she's intentionally bland. They do it so that teenagers can map their personality onto her, but once you realize how little character there is, it's impossible not to notice. This movie's new interesting character is named Misumi, and she's the one that introduced Asuna to Sword Art Online. Misumi's just as bland, except she's good at video games. In canon, she's a competitive Tekken player. Eventually she runs into Misumi, who starts showing her the ropes of the game. In game, she goes by Mito, and obviously she's using an avatar, but that won't matter in a minute. We essentially watch episode 1 from Asuna's perspective this time. Oh no, Akihiko Kaya was gonna kill everyone. Mito has the same sort of train of thought Kirito goes through, so they party up and start trying to level up Asuna. And while they're running out of town, she nearly dies, and we see Mito's tragic backstory. Ever since she was a little kid, she was just too good at Tekken, so no one wanted to play Tekken with her. They're being serious, by the way. 40 minutes later, and we're at the first actual event of note. It's been a decent amount of time since the game started, and while Asuna and Mito are fighting plant monsters, Mito falls off a cliff. Asuna's about to die, and Mito decides that she can't watch the health bar hit 0, so she leaves the party and runs away. Asuna manages to fight off the horde of monsters until there's one left, and that monster gets eaten by a much larger monster that comes out of nowhere. It's totally gonna kill Asuna, but then, in a flash, a mysterious figure takes down the monster and saves her. It's Kirito. Asuna's solo leveling in a dungeon somewhere, and when she's about to pass out, Kirito shows up and saves her again. What? Kirito's the one who told Asuna about the meeting for the raid on Alfheim, by the way. Mito was also there the entire time. Every time she pops up on screen, I can't help but feel like I'm watching Sword Art Online Go and Bumblebee. We also just watched this entire scene again, by the way. We of course also watched the entire Alfheim fight, but this time they managed to change 2 whole things. Mito's there, of course. She helps in the combat and eventually gets to apologize for leaving Asuna back then, but otherwise the scene plays out practically identically. Anytime she tries to add to the conversation, someone talks louder than her, so no one hears her. And since it's her movie, they gave Asuna a brief moment. Unfortunately, it isn't without its issues. During the fight with Ilfeng, he does an AoE move that paralyzes everyone, and then Mito tells Asuna that he only does that when he's surrounded. Asuna then yells to everyone and takes command during the last phase of the fight. She yells it. This is her big moment to foreshadow her becoming a leader at some point, or whatever. After the fight, everyone's so mad at Kirito for not telling them about the move, just like they were in Sword Art Online proper, but Asuna's standing right there and no one gives a fuck. We don't even end on a good note. Just like in Sword Art Online, she asked him how he knew what her name was. Girl, you were partied with another player for nearly a month. How did you never see her name? It actually gets even worse. Kirito has to tell her where the health bar is. Girl, you've been playing a death game for nearly a month. Why does he have to tell you where to look for your health bar? What the hell? Also, a random character shows up and isn't expounded upon until the next movie, and hardly. Okay, so Shikorozo of Deep Night. Shikorozo of Deep Night is a weird case. While Aria of a Starless Night is really boring, it's also essentially the first 2 episodes of the show. Shikorozo of Deep Night is entirely new content. It is just as boring though. We get to see a new boss that's a horse. I'm pretty sure they reskinned a dude to be Diabel. Since his death was essentially pointless in both versions of the story, could we not have just let him live? Clearly you wanted to anyway, and the whole point of these movies is to go back and fix those mistakes. Just make everyone mad that people died in the first raid instead of it being just Diabel. It's not unfathomable to fix this fucking show, they're just being dumb. The plot isn't interesting either, so I'll blitz through it. While Asuna and Kirito are in a dungeon, Asuna eavesdrops on a conversation between 2 shady figures. I should also note they're only in this dungeon because they ate a special tart that let them see change on the ground, and Asuna wants to look for change on the floor. They want to convince one of the guilds to make an attempt on the boss by themselves instead of working together with another group. And this is a problem, I guess? If they want to make an attempt on the boss, they're putting themselves at risk, of course. But if they have a plan, why is it up to Kirito and Asuna to stop that? When they get put in a situation like this in the back half of the series, they didn't give a shit then. So why is it a problem now? Asuna, Kirito, Mito, and a bunch of other non-guild aligned players make an attempt on the boss before either guild can do it. To keep the balance of power, I think? Anyway, the fight isn't very interesting. There's an explicit Attack on Titan reference, so that's kinda cool. But eventually they beat it, and Mito gets the raid drop and gives it to Kirito. Asuna and Kirito confront the guild that was going to do the raid, and I need you to understand, when I watch a show for videos like these, if I can find a dub, I'm gonna watch the dub. And that's that way when I'm taking notes, I can like look away from the screen and still like learn what's going on and like write things down, but it's also so that I can find gems like this.
Congrats or whatever.
Yo, Blackie!
Blackie? That slipped past everyone? Hearing this brings Asuna to literal tears. Happy New Year, it's 2023. Kirito and Asuna are gonna go hang out with everyone when they're confronted by a man with a knife. They handle the situation pretty quickly, but I'm only bringing it up because I have a hunch that this guy's gonna be one of the founding members of Laughing Coffin, the edgy murder guild that I don't think I've mentioned in this video yet. And that's how the movie ends. I think that Shikorozo of a Deep Night is probably better than Staria of a Arless Night. Fucking smooth. I think that Shikorozo of a Deep Night is probably the better of the two. Just hardly, and that's really crazy because it's not a high bar to clear. I can't say they aren't giving Asuna stuff to do, but I watched her farm rats for like 15 minutes. That's insane work. But before I forget to mention it, there's also just a bunch of worthless shit. We see Mito give Asuna a necklace after they fight at the midpoint of the movie, and the necklace has an anti-paralysis property. Now, I think this is how they're planning on retconning Asuna being paralyzed at the end of the game, since it's like a significant item, so it would be used in a significant moment like that. They are on floor 4, and I don't think Asuna would take off this gift under any circumstance, unless it breaks and despawns. And if you're gonna tell me that Asuna, one of the characters on the front lines, who's actively trying to beat the game, doesn't get paralyzed between floor 5 and 75, I'm gonna ask you what you're smoking. Maybe Kirito was right after all. There really isn't anything more boring than watching someone else play an RPG. Did you think you were done with Sword Art Online once they made it out of Sword Art Online? Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Unfortunately, Reki Kawahara is a sick fuck. You are halfway through season 1 of 4! I couldn't remember much of Alfheim when I started this video, and that was a scary thing. I had such an immense disdain for Sword Art Online, but when it came to Alfheim, the only thing I was feeling was an immense dread. Even as I go through this with you now, I just feel this, like, pit in my stomach. because I have to talk about this now. I will also say basically all of those content warnings I gave at the start of this video are for this arc. Again, I'll try to cover this topic in the most sensitive way I can, but if discussion of these things will put you at risk, I cannot recommend you continue watching this video or Sword Art Online. Don't worry, you really aren't missing out as much. If you made it this far, I'm sure you understand that now. We start by seeing what Kirito's up to out in the real world. He spent some time hanging out with his weird sister cousin, I should probably explain that. Suguha Kitagaya is Kirito's cousin, but because Kirito's parents died when he was young, he was adopted by his aunt, so they were raised as siblings. They used to hang out all the time, but when Kirito found out he was adopted, he grew a little distant. I don't know what possessed Reki Kawahara to do this, but Suguha's arc in this show is her rambling about her feelings for her brother, getting over it, and then proceeding to fall in love with him a second time. It is entirely possible that someone could write a good story with this plot in there somewhere, but I think it's just a symptom of making literally every female character fall in love with Kirito. First Sachi, then Silica, Liz, Asuna, and finally his own sister Suguha. He just can't help himself. If they aren't in love with Kirito, they aren't worth keeping in the story. It's been 2 months since Sword Art Online was cleared, and about 300 players, including Asuna, are still asleep. Kirito has been routinely visiting her in the hospital, but someone else is there this time. This is Nobuyuki Sugo, and he's coworkers, kind of, with Asuna's dad. They're with the company that took over the SEO servers after the incident began. And he, apparently, has his heart set on marrying Asuna, and he's the most cartoonishly evil creep ever. He's like sniffing her hair and licking his lips and shit. Just really despicable behavior. He's not even trying to be slick about it. He's gonna marry Asuna in a week, despite the fact that she's in a coma, and her dad has literally zero reason to marry her off. Sugo, like, claims that he has the right to Asuna's life because he's the one keeping her alive, and then he tells Kirito to beat it. Kirito's pretty bummed about this, of course, and Suga tries to comfort him. In this scene, she isn't written like a sister-cousin thing. She's written like a subservient partner, and I guess that's the goal? I just don't even know anymore. She started like thinking about how she felt about him not being her brother and instead being her cousin, and somehow wound up falling in love with I cannot believe the show is this bad. I knew there was an incest plot, but the only thing I remembered about it is that Sword Art Online Abridged fixed it. No wonder he felt like Silica reminded him of Suguha. They front-load her obsession with Kirito before they get into the game, and then they stop addressing it for a while. Kirito gets an email from Agil with a photo of someone that looks like Asuna. Apparently, this was taken in a new MMO called Alfheim Online. It's like Sword Art, except you can fly and use magic. The end goal of the game is to make it to the top of the world tree, and whoever makes it up to the top unlocks limitless flight for everyone who chose the same race as they did. Yeah, Alfheim kind of has a race war thing going on. When you create your character, you can choose from a bunch of different elf races, and at best, these act kind of like classes. Like the dark elves, the Spriggans are rogues, and the green ones are normal elves. And at worst, these function like guilds. But you know what they don't function like? Fucking races! But yeah, if you make it up to the top of the world tree, you unlock flight for whoever chose the same race as you. A couple players made an attempt for the top, and one of them snapped a photo of a giant bird cage in the tree, and once they zoomed in, they saw Asuna. She's alive! I don't know how, but she is! It turns out that Sugo is with the company that published Alfheim, so Kirito decides to head into the game to investigate. It'll probably be better if I just explain Asuna's side of the plot now, instead of like bouncing back and forth. Sugo is holding Asuna hostage in the world tree. He says that he could take advantage of her body in the real world before going, no, I'm kidding, I would never do that. He will go on to threaten to do this multiple times. I don't even understand why he's trying to act like he wouldn't. He's the one holding the surviving SAO players hostage, and he's using them to research brainwashing technology through the nerve gear. So clearly you're going to try to take advantage of this poor girl. He's also said multiple times he doesn't even like Asuna, so why do this? You're already a well-established and respected employee in your company. You have a 401k, fuckhead! Also, isn't it crazy that the final boss of the season is just removing Asuna's agency again? She hasn't made a single meaningful decision. I don't think I would notice if she was brainwashed. Sugo's introduction marks an insane tonal shift for the show, but Kawahara isn't competent enough to write this. This is the same genius who's writing an unironic, unrequited incest subplot with no apparent goal. You tell me if he can handle overriding Asuna's abuse. Asuna tries to escape a couple times, but it's just an excuse to put her in weird fetish bait. She tries to make it into a console before these weird tentacle dudes grab her. They also talk about assaulting her, by the way, but she manages to grab an important key card before they put her back in the cage. She's seriously 2 millimeters away from logging out, but she hesitates for no reason and is caught. You couldn't decide whether or not to press the button? And that's basically all there is to say about Asuna's stuff for a while. Kirito logs in for the first time, and of course he picks the edgy elf race. He spawns in the middle of nowhere, and apparently he was supposed to spawn in on the other side of the map. But why he's brought here isn't explained as far as I'm aware. Because Alfheim was essentially ripped straight from the Sword Art Online code, Kirito's skills transferred over. So wouldn't Asuna's? How? Dude! Yui also made it into Alfheim. Since Kirito saved her to his local hard drive, she was able to make it out of Sword Art, and once Kirito fills her in on what's going on, she's ready to help. A little ways away, a couple of players are getting chased by an enemy guild. These are Leafa and Rekon, and just as Leafa's about to get killed, Kirito shows up. Rekon did not survive long enough, unfortunately. Also, of course, Leafa is Suguha. I'm gonna be flipping between these 3 names, so sorry. Kirito saves her at the last second, but neither of them recognize each other's voices. Also, Kirito's using the same username and no one recognizes this guy. No shot he isn't famous. He's the guy who cleared Sword Art Online and saved 6,000 lives. He's at least a niche celebrity, but this is the niche he would be the most famous in. Also, Leafa, who's had Kirito back for 2 months, doesn't know the name? How has that not come up in conversation? He and Leafa get a drink, and he tells her that he needs to make an attempt on the World Tree as soon as possible. And Leafa says, you know what, fuck it, I'll help. As they make their way to the World Tree, they get into a couple of skirmishes, and one of them isn't very interesting, and the other one is kinda cool. While they're underground, Kirito uses some illusion magic to turn into the Gleam Eyes, and kills these players. And that's pretty much it. It's not very interesting or hype, but it functions as a scene. And while we're here, this is gonna be a really weird sentence. Why is the incest romance the only romance he's trying to write? Let's ignore the elephant in the room real quick. This is the only romantic dynamic in the show. Full stop, kind of. Asuna and Kirito aren't a real couple. She's the leading female character and he's the protagonist. They're together because that's how damsel in distress stories work. They practically have no chemistry together. Watching Leafa fall for Kirito isn't winning any awards or anything, but I can at least see what they're going for. So why did he try to write the romance with his sister instead of writing the romance with his wife? Clearly you understand how to write someone falling for someone else, at least a little, but why now? Why are you trying now? This show makes my blood boil. It's insane too, because while they're in the game, Leafa's the most interesting character that Kirito interacts with. But I don't want to watch them interact with one another because it's a fucking incest plotline. The next conflict has the best fight in the show, so I'll give it its well-deserved 1 flower. Before they make it to the World Tree, Kirito's gonna help Leafa stop a conflict between 2 races, kind of before it happens. The leaders of the regular elves and the catgirl elves are meeting, and the salamanders are planning on attacking them during this meeting. I don't know why, but they didn't have this meeting in a safe zone. The guy in charge of the salamanders challenges Kirito to a fight, and of course Kirito wins, but this is easily the best fight in the show. The animation? It's pretty fire. The antagonist is doing his job well, and his gimmick is cool, and that's it. Also, believe it or not, every named female character in the scene starts fighting over Kirito.
Would you guys chill out? For your information, he's my...
Where was this with Asuna? Make Leafa Asuna, make the catgirl Silica, and the other one can be Klein, fuck it. The leaders of the guild thank Kirito for his help, and then offer to help with the World Tree attempt once they get some time to prepare. The first attempt on the World Tree is kind of uneventful, just because Kirito loses, but at some point, Asuna hears Yui and drops down the key card she snagged to Kirito. It's just insane. He almost beats the World Tree on his own. I think if you give him like 5 attempts, he can do it. The only downside is that he has to wait 10 whole minutes to respawn. Leafa grabs his reboot card before he despawns, and then Kirito says Asuna's name, and they figure out that they've been siblings this entire time. And they both log out so they can talk about it. Kind of. Guys, as frustrating as it is, this is the most competent scene in this plotline. That's not to say it's good. In fact, I still think it's quite shit. I don't even know how to unpack this. Kirito doesn't emote much, but that isn't news to anyone. And at some point he apologizes, but I honestly don't think he needs to. Suguha outright confesses to him, which is better than her trying to deny it, I guess. But the rant she goes on is written like she's just missing an estranged sibling. If you scrape away the weird romance stuff, this scene genuinely functions just as well, if not better. you can just make the arc about that. All things considered, it could have been much worse. It's still not very good, but it could have been much worse. I'd be stupid not to bring up Sword Art Online Abridged in this video at some point. This is that time. Internet darling Sword Art Online Abridged is a series produced by Something Witty Entertainment. Just like DBZ Abridged and 7 Deadly Schmucks, Sword Art Online Abridged is a redubbing of the series. Most of the changes are just to make it funny, but Sword Art Online Abridged takes it a step further, and consistently improves on the framework of the series. Do you wish the female characters were written, like, at all? Go check that shit out. Silica is a real person. Asuna is a real person. Akihiko Kaiba knows why he locked everyone in the game, and it makes a ton of sense, etc, etc, etc. One of the best decisions the series makes is to scrape away all of this shit. Instead, Kirito and Suguha's relationship fractures because Kirito left her behind once his interests changed. He never fought for her, but since they've been looking for Asuna in Alfheim, he hasn't stopped fighting. This culminates into one of the best performed monologues I've seen. It's good.
So how dare you accuse me of hating you when you clearly never gave a shit about me!
I had no idea.
Just leave me alone.
And then we didn't get another episode for 9 months! This is just one example, but Abridged makes improvements like this all over the place. And if you haven't seen it, I really recommend you go check it out. I'm gonna rewatch it after making this video. If I can find enough to talk about it, I might make like a supplementary video for this, but that is a different plate of cookies for a different glass of milk. If you wanna watch someone smarter than me talk about it though, you should check out Explanation Point's videos on the topic. I'll link them in the iCard and also in the description below. They have a duel, but they both try to throw it and apologize to each other. Kirito explains that he hasn't really come back from Sword Art, and he won't until Asuna makes it back. Leafa says she'll be waiting for him, and until then, she'll help him in here. And they draft Rekon for another attempt on the world tree. I don't like any characters in this show, aside from Kind of Klein and Aegil, and Rekon is just so unapologetically lame. To all the Zero Rekon fans out there, shut up, you aren't real. The attempt on the world tree goes about as well as it can with just the 3 of them. And then everyone who said they'd help shows up to help, and they treat this like a surprise? Kirito makes it to the top of the world tree and realizes that it was never meant to be opened by a player. But Yui accesses the code from the key card that Asuna dropped earlier, and they manage to open up the gate. Are you guys ready for a finale that might be as bad as Aincrad's? Kirito and Yui make it over to the birdcage and find Asuna, but just as they're about to make a break for the lab to free her, something logs Yui out. It's Sugo, and he's using gravity magic to stop Kirito and Asuna from moving. And then he just starts explaining his evil plan. He's 80% done with his perfect brain/emotion washing machine thing. And once he's done, he's gonna sell the tech. He pins Kirito with his sword, and he's gonna start cranking down the pain absorbers. And once it goes below 3, his real body will start being affected. That's just not how the fucking nerve gear works, guys. The pain absorbers in Sword Art, and they make a point of this, were set to 0, there's a train. He pins Kirito with the sword and is like, I'm gonna start cranking the pain absorber down, and when it hits 3, your real ass body will start facing like consequences for the pain you're feeling, right? But in Sword Art Online, their pain things were set to 0, right? Because Kirito makes a point out of that later. You could get beat the fuck up in Sword Art Online and you'd be fine. You just had to survive. It doesn't physically damage you. That doesn't make any fucking sense. He says he's going to assault Asuna multiple times in the real world, and then he starts like licking her face and shit while Kirito's being forced to watch. And it does get worse, but I don't care to describe how. Instead, let's talk about a different series. Berserk. In Berserk, despite what the worst part of the fan base will tell you, Casca's assault is heartbreaking and it is treated as such. The eclipse is the beginning of the apocalypse in universe, and they start by murdering basically every character we give a shit about, but famously it ends with Casca's assault. It is the worst thing Griffith does, and Miura treats it like it is the worst thing that Griffith does. And afterwards, Casca and Guts' entire dynamic changes as a result. So much of the series is concerned with Casca's trauma, and that matters. I'm willing to bet my left lung there is one or less moment where Asuna reflects on the trauma of this incident. Instead, the scene acts as the perfect example of Kawahara's attitude towards writing women. The point of the scene isn't that Asuna is being literally assaulted. Kawahara's too focused on the fact that Kirito has to watch it happen. This is excruciating. Anyway, the ghost of Akihiko Kaiba tells Kirito to lock in. What is is happening? Oh my god.
Do you remember how you showed me the power of the human will was superior to the system?
Oh, it's just terribly written the whole way through. Kirito locks in and logs in as Akihiko Kaiba somehow, and instead of giving his wife new clothes and letting her out of her chains, he decides to swing his dick around and fight Sugo with the pain absorber set to 0. And of course Kirito wins. He saw a ghost and logged in as the ghost. They will make up anything to give him the win! Kirito's gonna go to the hospital now that Asuna can log out, and finally, she's free from Sword Art Online. Before he logs out to go see Asuna, he gets to talk to Kaiba for just a second. He's an afterimage of Kaiba's mind, an echo that he scanned into the game, resulting in his death. Kaiba gives him a seed for a world like Sword Art Online. Whatever that means, but whatever he does with it is up to him. Then he logs out and runs to the hospital to visit Asuna. Before he makes it inside, Sugo attacks Kirito with a knife, but he realizes he's the main character, so he locks in and wins a knife fight with a grown-ass man immediately. Kirito makes his way into the hospital, but there isn't any staff? Like, there's no one's at the front desk of the hospital? What if something happens? I hate to be unrealistic, but what if, I don't know, what if a knife fight starts in the parking lot? Asuna's awake in the hospital. She doesn't look any different than she does in the game, even though that scan of her face was 2.5 years ago or some shit. Remember how malnourished Kirito was when he got out? They introduce themselves to each other in person, and then they have their first real kiss. You know, it's not even fun to be angry at the show anymore. I'm just tired of this shit. Kirito took the seed to Aegil, and apparently it's a world seed for another full dive MMO. Anyone with access to a server can use it to make their own games. But don't worry, Aegil checked it, so it's safe. Because Aegil, a bar owner, checked it, so it's safe. I'm glad everyone's enjoying the world seed and stuff, but I would never trust that shit. They were 80% done with the mind control stuff. Heaven forbid some dude takes this open source code and brainwashes everyone. Or I don't know, what if they trap people in a death game with the same code? Anyway, they poured all of Aincrad into Alfheim, and then Kirito asks Leafa to clear it with them from the bottom floor up. Then she cries and says sure, and then they use Crossing Field to end the show. Man, that really was dog shit. I wish that I could find some greater meaning in the tragedy that is Sword Art Online, but it's just sloppily constructed. If there's an opportunity for a mistake, they'll make it. If there's an opportunity to write characters, they'll ignore it. And then every slop anime since it's come out has copied it. It's baffling. Please watch anything other than Sword Art Online. Go watch the abridged series, why not? I have seen more of this show, but only through Gun Gale, and from what I remember, it's not as bad, just because it realizes how stupid it is and leans like completely into it. But at least that's like a decision that the author's making about the story. I can only hope I'm remembering it like accurately. I hope it's at least enjoyable. But whether we find out or not is up to you guys. If you guys enjoy this video and want to see more, you should totally subscribe to the channel and let me know. You should also hit the notification bell so you know when that video comes out, if I decide to make it. Next time, I want to talk about Gun Gale, Mother Cesario, and Ordinal Scale, but if you guys don't want to hear me talk about that shit, I will be more than happy to talk about anything else. Either way though, there will probably be a video or two in between those, so I can like cleanse my palate, I guess. But I've been talking for a while. I want to hear from you guys. Did you like Sword Art Online? If you did, are you okay? Blink twice if Kawahara is in the room with you. I'm always reading the comments and I would love to hear what you guys think about this one. So let me know. But that is it from me today. As always, I'm Knightley. You've been absolutely incredible. I'll see you relatively soon. Peace. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, editing this video is gonna suck. I don't want to have to look at Sword Art Online's ugly ass art style for like weeks. The things I do for you, oh my god.